Hello friends, you have come to listen to a story. Let's start the story. It all began with a train delay. Ella, a travel photographer chasing the northern lights, found herself stranded in a tiny snow-covered town in Norway. The train wouldn't leave until morning. With nowhere to go and snow swirling around her, she stepped into a warm little cafe that looked like it came out of a dream, frosted windows, glowing lights, and the smell of cinnamon and coffee. Behind the counter was Henrik, a local, with messy blonde hair, tired eyes, and the quiet charm of someone who liked silence more than speaking. He offered her a warm drink and a corner seat by the fireplace. "I don't usually talk to strangers," he said, setting down her hot chocolate. "But you don't look like a stranger. You look like someone I used to dream about." Ella laughed, surprised. "That's the worst pickup line I've ever heard." He smiled, but didn't take it back. What was supposed to be one night turned into 2, then 3. The train kept getting delayed, as if the universe knew something they didn't. They explored frozen lakes, watched the auroras together, and talked about everything they'd never said out loud to anyone else: his lost music career, her fear of staying in one place. By the end of the week, she asked, "What if I just stayed?" Henrik looked up from tuning an old guitar. "I was hoping you would." They kissed under the dancing sky, where the stars fell first, not in the heavens, but in their hearts. Ella moved into a small room above the cafe. It was nothing fancy: a bed, a window facing the mountains, and walls that creaked in the wind, but it felt more like home than any place she'd stayed before. She spent her days taking photographs of the quiet town: children playing in the snow, old fishermen repairing boats, reindeer crossing frozen roads. At night, she helped Henrik close the cafe, their fingers brushing over mugs and plates, their eyes lingering a little longer each time. Henrik wasn't loud about his feelings. He never said, "I love you," in grand speeches. Instead, he left Ella notes in her coat pocket. One said, "Your laugh is my favorite sound." Another just read, "Stay." But as winter melted into spring, reality crept in. Ella's phone buzzed more often. Emails, offers, opportunities. A gallery in Paris wanted to feature her work. A travel magazine offered her a contract. Her name was getting known. She had worked for years to reach this point. Henrik saw the change in her, how she sat by the window longer, staring at the distant mountains. He didn't ask her to stay again. He just said, "If you go, take your heart with you. Don't leave it behind." The night before she was supposed to fly out, the sky danced green and gold again. They laid on the roof of the cafe, shoulders touching. "I don't want to lose this," she whispered. "You won't," he said. "Some love doesn't need to live in one place." "But I want to live in it," she replied. "With you." He turned to her, eyes shining with the reflection of the aurora. "Then stay. Not because you're afraid to leave. Stay because you're brave enough to choose me." She kissed him, slow and sure. The next morning, her suitcase stayed packed in the corner. She walked downstairs, camera in hand, apron over her shoulder. The cafe's sign outside now read, "Where the stars fell first, coffee, stories, and one big love." It had been a year since Ella decided to stay. The cafe was now a small landmark in town. Tourists passing through would stop for a cup of Henrik's famous cardamom coffee, and some would recognize Ella from her photos on the cafe walls, each capturing a frozen moment of magic, warmth, and northern light. They built a rhythm together. Mornings began with shared silence and sleepy smiles. Days passed in flour-dusted hands and laughter echoing from the kitchen. At night, they would play music, Henrik on guitar, Ella humming beside him. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And real, they learned, was better than perfect. But one morning in late autumn, a letter arrived. It was from the Paris gallery. They were offering Ella her own solo exhibition. Not just a display, but full funding, 3 months in the city, a book deal, and a chance to establish herself as a global artist. She stood at the kitchen table, letter trembling in her hands. Henrik looked up from the stove. He didn't need to read it to understand. "You have to go," he said quietly. "But I don't want to leave you again," she whispered. He stepped closer. "Then don't leave us. Just go. Chase your dream. And I'll be right here, chasing mine. We don't have to choose between love and life, Ella. We can make space for both." She cried, not from sadness, but from the beauty of that kind of love, the kind that lets you fly, not hold you down. 3 weeks later, She was in Paris, walking through white-walled galleries where her photographs hung like windows to another world. The final photo in the series. A shot of Henrik, unaware, tuning his guitar by the fireplace, the aurora faint behind the window. She returned just before Christmas, snowflakes catching in her hair as she stepped into the cafe. Henrik looked up from the counter, his eyes soft. "Took you long enough," he said. "I brought stories," she replied, dropping her suitcase with a smile. "And I'm home." 5 years later, the cafe was busier than ever, still tucked in that sleepy Norwegian town, still filled with the smell of cinnamon, and still lit by the soft hum of fairy lights and firelight. Ella and Henrik now ran it together, side by side. A small photo studio sat above the cafe where Ella taught local kids the art of seeing the world through a lens. Her Paris exhibition had turned into a traveling collection, now displayed in countries she hadn't even been to, but the best part, she always came home. They had a daughter now. Her name was Luca, meaning happiness in Norwegian. She had Henrik's quiet eyes and Ella's curious spirit. She'd learned to walk across the cafe floor, her first steps caught in the reflection of a coffee machine. Her first word, star. Every year on the night the aurora returned, the town would gather outside the cafe, sipping warm drinks and looking up at the sky. Ella would snap a photo of the crowd, of Henrik holding Luca on his shoulders, of the stars that danced just like they had that very first night. And inside, above the fireplace, there hung a framed quote that customers always stopped to read. "Love isn't just where we fall. It's where we choose to stay, again and again." The cafe had become more than a stop on a map. It was a story, told in coffee, in music, in pictures, in love. And in that small, glowing place where the stars had first fallen, they never really stopped. Subscribe to the channel to hear more stories like this, friends. Thank you.